Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast, where strength is more than a number on the bar. I'm your host, Ross Leppala, powerlifter, coach, and co-creator of the Intentional Athlete Experience. This show is for lifters, movers, and seekers who know that what happens in the gym echoes into your life. We explore how to train with purpose, live with clarity, and channel the pursuit of strength into something deep, something transformative. Each episode, we'll dive into conversation, tools, and insights that help you align your mindset, body, and spirit. Because real growth doesn't just happen under the barbell. It happens in your mind, in your breath, and in your choices. This is about more than just PRs. This is about presence, power, and progress that lasts. Welcome to the journey, my friend. Welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. Hey, my friends, welcome back to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Leppala, excited and grateful as always to be here. Today, I'm excited to be joined by my dear friend, Pia Marangoni. I met Pia 2024 in South Africa. I knew her for a while, but got to actually meet her in person and it's been a great friendship ever since then, and I'm really excited to talk about and dive in on some of her life experiences and some of the things that she's learned, some of her perspectives, and just continue to add value to this idea of what training with intention can teach us and how much more powerful training can be in the pursuit of strength and or athletics, and what pursuing something with meaning and on purpose can do for other areas of our life, and how it can be a catalyst and a pull thread and a why in our life. So I'm really excited to share that with you. Let's dive in. Pia Marangoni. Pia, my friend, welcome to the Intentional Athlete Podcast. How are you doing this morning? Or afternoon for you?
Out of trouble, Ross. But it's a real honor to be on the other end of the podcast. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you've had me on Fiercely Field Nutrition Podcast a couple of times, and it's always been a great conversation. And so, yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, man, we ought to have the other side of the conversation and learn about Pia's lifting journey and her nutrition business and where that came from, and because that's not where you started. If I recall correctly.
Exactly right. I mean, It's the furthest place from where I don't know how far back you want to go, like to find starting, right? Like my first job, I was a journalist. I actually studied journalism, and I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to be a war photographer. And I wanted to go to the Congo and take pictures of conflict so people could see the truth. So it's a bit of a different domain. And then from there, I did work as a news journalist for some time and took a writing job. I was actually coming to the US on vacation to see my family, and I wanted to save up some money. So I took a 3-month writing contract with a bank. They needed someone to do some copywriting for them, and ended up in banking for far too long. I kind of really enjoyed getting a salary. I was like, wow, this is kind of cool. They offered me a permanent job, and I was in banking 25 years, maybe.
Gotcha.
Yes. Yeah, long time. And anyway, in between all of that, ended up doing what I think a lot of people do, which is working really hard, not looking after my health. I ended up getting quite ill, and was really, I was smoking a lot. I was also partying a lot. And this is maybe when I was 30 odd, maybe somewhere there. And my career was doing really well, but it was, these long days, and I'd go into work early and leave late, and I was making a lot of money, and I was really maybe the pinnacle of my financial, career at that point in time. But I was really unwell. I didn't do any exercise. I ate shit. I didn't know anything about anything, and I was diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. And the doctor said, well, you're going to do something, or you're going to be 30 years old with diabetes. That's how badly I was living. And at the time, I didn't know how much my own actions were missing my health. Long story short, I decided to try CrossFit because I had seen my stepson go from kind of skinny to one day sitting at lunch having these muscles. And I was like, whoa, where did those come from, And he'd been doing CrossFit. And so I thought, okay, well, this is a good thing. So I started doing CrossFit. And the only thing I could do was deadlifts. Like I could really easily do a 40-kilo deadlift. But I remember there was always a warm-up run, which was 200 meters. I don't know what that is in miles, but it's a very short run. And I
And speak in meters and SI units, Pia. I know what they are. It's okay.
Oh, okay. No, I don't. Well, okay. So how much is, but 200 meters is short, right?
Like 200 meters is like an eighth of a mile.
Right.
Or if I think it is 16th of a mile. Doing the math wrong.
I couldn't run. Well, I mean, the point is, it's not far, but I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
And I hated it, but I could deadlift. And funnily enough, just being able to just do something that other girls were struggling to do kind of kept me going back. And that was maybe the beginning of the end of that version of myself, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And yeah, from there, met some really awesome women who are my very close friends today. Stayed with it because of the barbell. And the one thing that kept me going back was like, I could do stuff that other people were struggling instead of just struggling with everything, because that's how I felt, right? Anyway, then became aware of Olympic lifting, and through that, like powerlifting, and then decided I want to do powerlifting because I was, looking at what people were doing and going, I really like this. I used to ask the CrossFit coaches, like there used to be an elite class. So like there was a general person class at like 4:00 and then the competitive guys at 5. And I always wanted to be in that class because they did back squats. So I used to just rock up at this class and just do the back squats because I loved it. And they kind of like they're fine. They were, and then I used to try and figure out how to do more squats. And then I'd go on like the Saturday class and eventually found somebody who's a powerlifting coach. And that was my first coach. And I worked with him. That was it. That was the beginning of truly being, into powerlifting. Everything else fell away. And I just wanted to concentrate on powerlifting. But through that, I also realized that I don't know anything about nutrition. And in the meantime, was going to these doctors and these functional health specialists. And, I'd always walk away more confused and with a supplement or something, or a script or something. And not to say that those things are bad, but I just felt that I can't, like the answer's not in a bottle. It's not in this, this shake that I need to drink, or this, whatever vitamin you're making me take. It can't be the answer. The answer can't be in pills. So I decided to educate myself, and I started studying nutrition and had worked with a few nutrition coaches locally. And then I met Fiercely Fueled. Then I met Kristen, who was the owner of Fiercely Fueled. And finally, like, okay, this is making sense. So those things kind of happened in parallel in terms of me meeting Kristen and her being a big influence. I see nutrition and my learning about nutrition, and me upskilling myself and going to study and get a qualification in nutrition. And my plan was always to educate myself because I was tired of being sold product to. Anyway, that was also like a divine meeting because, Kristen didn't have capacity to continue with the business. I was looking to get out of corporate. As much as the money was good, I actually decided I didn't want to be locked up in a room from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. with no windows and fluorescent lighting because other people can't stick to their presentation slots. Like, it really drove me nuts, like sitting in those. And it was a C-suite position. I was in an exco, I was head of marketing for private bank, one of South Africa's biggest banks. And I was thinking, these are the people running this organization is millions and millions of dollars. And you don't have the discipline to stick to your presentation slot. And that really bothered me, amongst other things. And, there's an honesty in lifting that you can't fake, which I was really drawn to. You can't fake results. And even if you put in the work, you don't always get the result, right? And there came a time where I'd made a comment in one of my check-ins to Kristen, and she was like, well, actually, I'm looking for a coach. And that's where that sort of tangent took off. In between that, I'd started another business, a coffee shop called Lift Coffee, because obviously he doesn't like to lift and drink coffee, which I was running, and eventually quit the bank. I did coffee's great, but I prefer coaching. Bought Fiercely Fueled, and that was 3 years ago, and here I am. So That's where it started, Ross.
Yeah.
Don't know if that's the answer that you needed.
No, that's awesome. Like, it's really, I think one of the biggest things that I want to highlight that I hear from your story is you were at a financial pinnacle, simultaneously very physically, emotionally, mentally, not at your healthiest, not at your pinnacle.
Yeah.
So the quality of your life, while you might not necessarily have financial worries, the quality of your life experience is less than.
Substantially less than.
Substantially less than. Keyword, substantially less than. And through discovering strength and barbells and the whole gambit, CrossFit being an introduction to it, and Olympic lifting and powerlifting, and you have those different transitions, but that's still all the cultivation of strength, physical strength. And through the cultivation of that physical strength, a lot of other things you realize and connect with, and you're starting to shift and change in your life. And what do you need to shift and change? You need strength to be able to change your life. You had been developing the physical strength. Now you're starting to make the changes in your life from nutrition, work, all those different things. And you have the strength to do that, which I can only imagine then further fuels your strength and health from a not just physical sense, but that mental, emotional, and spiritual sense.
Yeah, exactly. You summed it up perfectly,
Right.
Yeah.
And so you have a lower revenue, you have lower income now compared to what you did before. But
substantially.
What would you, if you were to rate your quality of life on a scale of 1 to 10 at your financial pinnacle, what would you rate it? 2? Yeah, it's pretty low. And what would you rate your quality of life now that you are not at your financial pinnacle, but there's so many other things that you're doing that you want to do? 10.
I love my life. I do. I love my life.
I believe it. I mean, and anybody that's around you for long can see and recognize that and understand that. Like, all the time that I've spent with you when I've gotten to go to South Africa and be around you, it's been nothing but fun and joy. Like, you're a happy-go-lucky person, even in the face of when things are kind of going a little bit squirrely or a little bit sideways. You're still happy-go-lucky. We're going to find our way through it, and it's not a problem.
Yeah. Look, I was thinking about it the other day, and it's a conversation that's come up with a few people, right? As coaches, I think coaching and fitness coaching is one of the most critical services in today's world. Because if you are not strong and healthy and able, and I'm not saying you have to be a competitive powerlifter, but if you do not have your function, if you're not strong and healthy, what do you really have? And one of the pivotal moments for me is I remember just after we all were able to go back into the office after lockdown, but we were still like distanced. So you could go in the office, but you had to be like a meter away from other people. It's a crazy time. And they set up this big room for us. And like, I think it was the nail in the coffin for me. And I looked at my boss, who is the loveliest person. It's a lovely, lovely person, and very senior, very influential in the bank. And like, we were so they put us in a circle. He was in the middle, and I'm saying this without speaking, without judgment. It was an observation. And I was looking at him and I was thinking, this guy's a tall guy, and he's young. He's maybe 40. His shoulders are hunched. He is pale, and pale because it's the kind of pale that you like, almost yellow, sallow, that you haven't seen the sun because you never go outside. I don't think he could pick up his children if he had to. And I know he worked all the time because I would get emails from him 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. And I thought, this ain't it. This ain't it. My heart broke for him because I'm like, you should be at the prime of your life. You're a young father. You are leading the bank, but physically, you probably couldn't pick up your 5-year-old if you needed to, And I could just see, like, it's not, I'm just going to use my words, and know that it's not a judgment on what his body looked like, but I could see that he didn't have muscle because he didn't train. You can see when somebody as muscle tone. Like, and Ross, we talk about it. It's like people will look at you and go, "Oh man, you're jacked," and you don't have to look like that but he had no quality of life. He didn't go outside, he didn't run, and I just thought, that's the price you're paying. You're literally plugged into a machine for a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, and I was like, this is you. If you don't do something. So the thing is, it's a gilded cage, because life, it was, on one hand, there was, I think, having enough is always going to be, knowing that you have enough is going to take a level of worry away in terms of living. Yeah. And I think financial security is a stress. It's a very real stress in today's world. But it's like, if you don't have your function, what does that mean? Yeah. I know people who are really, really, really wealthy, but you can't, there's someone that comes to mind, he's got a beautiful home in a beautiful part of the country. He cannot walk up the stairs in his home. His back is fucked. And I'm like, for me, that's not what I want. Yeah. There's no point in having this beautiful view if you can't walk upstairs and see it. So, I guess it's also define quality of life. For me, it means autonomy. It means I can sleep my 8 hours, and if my business is doing well, that's on me. If it's not, that's on me too. And that's kind of crazy liberating and scary. I've got the freedom to train in the middle of the day, which is an absolute gift. That's maybe one of the things I love the most. I get to recover on my terms. I don't have to do anything. And I like that very much.
You said you get to train in the middle of the day, and that's definitely like such a big life quality upgrade, for me too, from leaving engineering and leaving that world to coaching full time. And, essentially coaching is, well, it's work. So is training. Training is now work. But like, I thought about it, this was some time ago, but I had the thought, like, what would my life be like if I had to go back to engineering and I had to be at the office from 8 to 5 or whatever? Like, when would I train? Would I train at 5 o'clock when I get home, or would I train in the morning before I go to work? Like, my body hates training in the morning, so I'd have to train when I get home from work. And then, like, what does that do for my family time? Right? So, like, that becomes the thing where a lot of people in the world, I think, oh, I don't have time for the gym, because they don't want to necessarily give up their family time. And I think that becomes part of the roadblock, is like, where's that balance? Where's that work-life balance? And if we're always spending time at work, we're going to feel that pressure to not spend more time away. Like, I have a home gym, I can go do that. That's easy. I can still spend time with the family while we can all go out there. But if I have to go to the gym down the street, then that's more time away. And I think that's where a lot of that comes from. What do you think the draw is? Like, what was it for you that started to pull you away? You started to see things and you started to want to go a different way. What do you think was the thing that started pulling at that thread and kind of continued to pull you along with it?
I think there were a few things. And I mentioned it. One was the honesty of powerlifting. And we know it keeps you real honest, and it teaches you stuff, and you can't lie to yourself. You can lie to yourself, but you can't get away from it. And I was really drawn to that, the grittiness, and the fact that if you put in the work, you're more likely to get a result. You're not always going to get a result. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But there's just something about putting in the hard work, doing the honest work, and hitting that PR that you've earned, right? That I really like. That I know that this is mine. No one can take it away from me, and no amount of money can buy it. That's the thing, right? You cannot bottle that feeling of putting half a kilo on a lift. You can't. And it sounds silly and small. Like back in the day, if you told me I'd like chip a lift by half a kilo, 1 kilo, I would have been like, oh, whatever. It doesn't mean anything now. It's completely different, right? And there's just something about knowing that no one can take that away from you. No one can give that to you. It's all me. Is really empowering. So there was that. And I think in parallel to that was I was seeing more and more of the posturing and the political maneuvering in the corporate world, which I think is part of the game that you have to play. I was like, I don't want to play this game. I don't want to, I just, even if you don't don't actually engage in the politics, you're on that playing, like somebody explained it to me, like you're in an organization, it's their playing field. You have to engage at a level just because you're in that organization. And I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to be told, like, I didn't want to have to go to meetings at 7 a.m. Until 7 p.m. And that just not having an option. And it started, impacting my training, because when I was having these exco days, I couldn't train because I couldn't get to gym. I wouldn't get my session finished early enough to get to training, and I wouldn't get, and that started really pissing me off. And then I'm going like, but hold on a second, who's driving who here? I have no agency here, and I don't want to do this. And also just sitting in a room, and you just, there was a lot of, like, I'm making it sound really bad. It wasn't. I actually worked as one of the better organizations I worked for, but I was just like, nah,
Right.
it's cool, but I just don't want to do this forever. I didn't hate it. That was the thing. And that was the sneaky thing. I didn't have a moment where I'm like, I hate this job. Something bad happened. I just realized I didn't love it.
Yeah.
Like I loved.
Yeah. It's same with engineering. It wasn't that I hated it. It was that I felt that calling to go in a different direction. So the other thing, if we back up to something you said previously, that I think to try and drive a couple of points that are themes and stories that are connecting in my mind. You initially had dreams and were doing journalism and photography in the Congo and wanted to tell those stories and show the realness of the things that the people were experiencing and having to go through and endure. And you kind of shifted away from that when you had this opportunity to have a salary, a steady, consistent salary. What happened in you or for you in your life that having that salary was enough to pull you away from something that I'm assuming was maybe a little bit more meaningful?
No, it's a good question. And I think what I'm going to say is it's quite a tough thing, right? I'm a young woman, and I'm at the time I'm 19, 20. No, I'm older. I've finished university. I lie. I would have been 22, maybe 22, 23. And I'm working for a newspaper. I'm freelancing for a daily newspaper, and a week, so the publishing group owned a few newspapers, and this is back when journalism, when we didn't have digital cameras, where we still developed cameras on film, and so things were a little bit slower. But it was also just after South Africa, not just after, a couple, maybe 10 years after Nelson Mandela was released, and it was really like a very positive time in the country. And one of the things that started happening was, well, two things that were happening is, one was the introduction or the mandate of affirmative action. And affirmative action said that if there are candidates of a equal skill, that the disadvantaged candidate must be appointed. It's a strategy to right the wrongs of the past. So I was freelancing and was not getting work because I wasn't a Black person, which was pretty tough for a young person to do. I didn't really understand what the strategy was at the time. It felt really unfair. And I remember going in one day, and that's taking me back. And there was a lot of, still in this young democracy, a lot of conflicts still happening in South Africa. And the other thing was, like, they would never send me to the conflict places because they're like, no, you're a young girl, it's too dangerous. And looking back, I understand why the photo editor did what she did. And, you're sending a 22-year-old into like somewhere that they could get shot. That's like really not what you would really want to do as a photo editor. But I was like, the one day there was a conflict, and there was some like illegal squatters on a land, and then they were being removed, and it got very violent. There was a lot of gunfire, and this standoff went on for a few days. Eventually they let me go. They were like, okay, Pia, you can go. And I was like, finally, this is it. I want to be in there. I want to be in the conflict. And went in there. There was like some gunshot, like nobody got, well, none of the journalists got hurt, but I was like with some of the photographers that were really influential photographers at the time where South Africa was reaching independence, like some of my heroes. And I'm here behind a barricade with Kim Ladbrokes or Alf Kamalo. Like if you look them up, they're like really like world press quality. They like told so much of South Africa's story through their photos. And I was like, okay, now this is happening, right? And when I got back to the office or back to the newsroom, I developed these photos. And I was so excited because I thought maybe this is something that can be on front page. Like this, like I was really proud of the work that I did. And I handed it in, and the editor said, listen, sorry, you can't work tomorrow. We've got to give somebody else the shifts because we're not allowed to pay you because you're white. And I just remember just going down to my car and just howling, like bawling my eyes out, like just absolutely crashed, like what the fuck, So and I was just like, life is so unfair. And it is unfair, totally is. But I let that crush me a little bit, right? And then so they'd call me in every now and again when somebody couldn't work and was really struggling to get work as a photographer. Nobody wants to put a young woman into a conflict zone. And then the work that I was doing was going to like financial results and taking pictures of old white men, who's actually who I ended up working with in the bank. And then I just was back then, I think if that was me now, I would approach things a bit differently. I might dig in, I might fight a bit, but it kind of crushed me a little bit and was really broke and was like, okay, we're going to and this was, I remember because it was the 2011, the December of 2011, we were going to the US. And I remember that because 2011 is a very significant year in US history. And I was like, well, okay, so you just got to make some money. You go to America, go visit your cousins, have a holiday, come back, and we'll sort this stuff out. So somebody was looking for a copywriter, and I was like, oh, I can do that. And like my idea of corporate at the time was like I actually was disgusted with myself because I kind of liked it. It's like, oh, it's nice. They give you coffee. There's a nice desk. This is the time I had email because the world didn't have email at that time. I'm that old. And they'd buy you lunch, and like the people are nice, and we'd go for sushi. I'd never had sushi. And I was like, why did you hate this so much? It's not so bad. It's not so bad. And and I was like, okay, 3 months. You can do this for 3 months, right? It's for America. And then they offered me, then they offered me a full-time job, obviously, because I'm great. And then I was like, okay, just do this for a few years. And I was still taking photos on the weekends and things like that. And I think I just, ended up doing like weddings, which I hated. Like I wasn't a great wedding. It's not what I wanted to do. So it kind of, I then realized, photography is a big passion of mine. I love taking photographs, but now I was taking photographs to somebody else's brief. I didn't like that. You're picking up a theme here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of killed it for me. And I've actually been thinking a lot about, getting back into it. I've actually met a few people here where I live who are photographers and going, I need to get back into the skill. I don't even know how the digital camera works. Because for me, the whole thing was being in a dark room and like having that red light was something I really loved. And that kind of died with also at that time, that's when people were getting digital cameras. And I just never upskilled myself, probably as a defense mechanism, if I think back. So yeah, maybe as a young person, I didn't have enough fight in me, or I didn't know that I could fight, or maybe,
You hadn't learned the grit yet.
No, I was soft. I was soft as fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I like to highlight, though, about all your life stories that you've been sharing, and why I asked you about the thread that was pulling you, for people to think about, whether you're aware of it or not, every transition that you had in your stories in those time frames in your life you were being pulled forward by some why. And it's usually pulling you out of a time of suffering, disconnect, into a time of things feel better, things are better. But it's not always pulling you in the right direction, right? Like while you got pulled into the corporate world and financially things were better, ultimately that wasn't really your true calling. And I think that's where then like you go through it, you have the momentary pleasure, the dopamine hit of the bank account increase because it solves the problem that you were immediately facing in the short term, but it didn't solve some of the other underlying core things. And that's where I like to talk about this, because I remember a lot of times hearing the old phrase of like, find something you love to do and learn how to get paid by it and you'll never work a day in your life. And I would hear that all the time growing up. And I'd be like, yep, I get it. But nobody really goes to the depth that phrase really needs to go. Like, it's not necessarily about something that you like to do. I like to run equipment. I'd like to drive a bulldozer, but that would beat me up physically. I like to build stuff, but that's also more physically demanding. There's other things that I like to do that have a deeper core purpose meaning for me. And I think when we can find those things and go to them, that's what increases the quality of experience of life. And it's not that corporate America or corporate South Africa or corporate business is bad and evil and wrong. I'm not one of those types of people. It is simply that it is a grind. Depending on the corporation you work for, it can be quite the grind. But like when I was engineering, the company I worked for wasn't like that. It was quite a pleasant company. And I didn't have a why beyond the paycheck, really. That was the big thing that drove me to pursue engineering. Was I liked to build, I liked math and science, and I didn't want to be as poor as I was as a kid. Here's a path, here's a way to make those things not happen. But it didn't scratch some of my other itches that needed to be scratched. And I didn't really know that until many years later. And I think that's the key of the find something you love to do, but like getting back into the roots of it. Like what is going on? Why is it there? And it's okay if it changes over time. But the point is when you're more aware and more intentional of those things and those whys that are pulling at you, like the shifts and changes are so much easier. Because you don't have to go through that point of intense suffering and life sucking. You just go, this isn't calling me anymore. Let's move over here.
Yeah. And I think you've nailed it, and at a time, the bank it served me at the time. And I think I needed to, I definitely needed to go through that. It was a 25 odd year career, and one of the things that, like, I always
And I'm
felt
sure there's
like
tons of things that you learned from that experience too that are vital for you to run your business now.
I learned so much from one of my bosses. He used to just, he was so good. He was really he was a powerhouse. He's still a good friend of mine now. And he used to just ask people questions. And he taught me a lot about problem solving, because I'm like, this guy knows so much. And I actually learned he doesn't. He just really listens. And what he would do is he would speak to, like, they'd put him in charge of a project, and he'd speak to every stakeholder and get their story on it, and really learn about it, and then figure out what the roadblock is. And, he said to me, like, I'm just really good at problem solving. I'm not an expert in the software or structure. I'm just really good at solving problems. And I thought, that's what CEOs do. They solve problems. That's what coaches do. We solve problems. And if you can solve a problem, whatever it is, you can help someone. So he was like, he's one of my biggest teachers. He also made me cry a lot. We joke about it now. Yeah, I learned a lot of things. I also learned, I saw a lot of human behavior, and I saw what people do when they're insecure or unprepared, and you can see it straight away.
So what do you do then? I want to come up with an example that I think can be fairly common and pluck at this for a second. What do you do when you have somebody that you're working with that they have this problem? We don't even need to know what the problem is, but they have a problem and you have a solution that you know that will solve this problem, yet this person continues to fail the application of the solution, and thusly the problem continues to be an ever-present thorn in that person's side. How do you shift away from that self-sabotaging behavior?
It's a good question, Russ. And we all have, it's really, you've got to see your own self-sabotage. You've got to be able to see your own patterns, whether you want to or not, right? So I think in nutrition coaching, we talk about ready, willing, and able. You ready to solve the problem? Are you able to, is really the big question. So I think I'd start there we were actually talking about it in our coaches meeting. Some people just seem to be spinning wheels, and they show up in unrelentingly. Every week I get a check-in. Every week we get similar things. So I know that they want help because they're showing up. They're not disappearing. Because if you didn't want help, you'd really disappear. You'd ghost, you'd cancel your card. So the first thing I do is I'm like, okay, this person is showing up. So we've just got to get into the crux of what's going on. What is, if we can identify and expose the pattern and understand why you're doing it, then it becomes an easier solve. And a lot of times it's just holding a mirror up to them and helping them see the truth, because many times these patterns, these behaviors are safety behaviors. They keep you safe or stagnant or still, right? But it's comfortable. The mind knows it.
Yeah.
And I can see that, but if I tell you that, it's almost either going to be seen as an attack or not really sink in. So it's really about helping you see where you're in your own way. Sometimes it depends. I mean, it's very dependent on the person and the context and what they're doing. But something I've always learned is like every behavior is a coping behavior. That's something that Kristen had said to me early days, is we do things, maybe they're not helpful things, but it's a survival thing. It's to keep us alive. It's to keep us safe. It's to protect us. So if you're showing up in your check-in, I believe that you want to be better, but something is getting in the way. So I need to figure out what that is. And a lot of the times through our process we have a weekly reflection process, it actually comes up. You actually solve your own problems. So sometimes it's just staying the course with someone and showing, and you'll write, they will write it in their check-in. They will name the thing, and you can say, actually, but you picked it up, look, in your words, and you can show it to them. And then they'll go, oh. So a lot of times it's just about helping them reflect back and see what they're doing. I think it's, I think that would be it. And but also sometimes I'm just going to go, I'll be straight. I'm not known for my diplomacy. I wasn't known for my diplomacy in the bank. I'll just be like you said to me, right? It's like, you're messing this up for yourself. Can you see this pattern you've been repeating? So you've got a decision to make now, because you can see the pattern and you have to decide X or Y, because ultimately it's your choice. I'm, not a magician, but you're the one who's making the choices every day, and you have to see where that friction's coming in. You have to put yourself in a position to be aware of the choice. So if needed, you can make a different choice. So always, I think the first step is awareness.
Yeah. See, and I think that's one of the beautiful parts about strength training is when you pay attention to what you're doing, and you need to be, it teaches you that. It can teach you that ability to be aware of what you're doing. When you do ABC, it's likely going to contribute to a certain outcome. And it doesn't care about the outcome.
No. I love that. I actually love that about strength training. Actually, strength doesn't care.
Yep. And I remember when Mike said that the first time, and it's come up in a lot of different places. And, I definitely, I like that because it's real and it's raw. And so I definitely appreciate how you kind of brought that same thing up and how it taught you as well. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care. And that in itself also can teach us a lesson. Maybe we care about the wrong things.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that. It's coming up. Maybe we do, maybe this thing that you thought was really important, maybe it isn't. Maybe you give it more weight than it deserves, what's the real important thing here, and just framing that in terms of progress over a lifetime. Now, for me, lifting, you want to be your strongest self. This is not a 2-month gig. This is not a 2-year gig. This is decades.
Yep.
And I know, like, principally, people know it. Like, we know that strength is not linear, but living it is hard. And competing year to year and putting blood, sweat, and tears in, and your totals not inching upwards is hard. But strength don't care, right?
Yeah.
But I always say to myself, well, you're not going to get better if you stop, right? You're definitely you're not going to improve your total if you stop lifting. So just, thinking a lot about progress over time, it's inevitable that if you're in it for long enough, you're going to have something come up. Your total, you may have a regression. You will have a regression. It's inevitable, I think, isn't it? Maybe, I don't know. I need to speak to people who've done this longer than me.
Well, and I think at some point there is going to be a permanent regression. Like
Yes.
there is that point. When it is, we have no idea. And I tend to think that's why people catastrophize those plateaus and those stalling points, is they start to think that's the point, and they think that's the point far too early in their pursuit. Additionally, like, it's about the journey, not the destination, right? Like, I think about that because I know that point's coming at some point in my career. I don't believe I'm there yet. I do believe that I have more to cultivate and display. And at the same time, like, if I'm past that point, does that change what I'm doing? Probably not, because I just genuinely love this. I think about it like, it's like snowboarding for me in a way. Because snowboarding was one of those things I grew up doing, and it was just a ton of fun. I could go out, and it was just, gosh, it was like one of the only things that I could do where my brain would just shut off, and it was just serenity.
Exactly.
But I knew I wasn't getting any better. I wasn't even trying to get better. I didn't give a shit about being a better snowboarder. I just gave a shit that I was out there snowboarding. And like, I don't think that part of me will ever go away when it comes to lifting weights. I just genuinely love and enjoy to lift weights. Even during those like 3 years when I was dealing with that like low grade hip issue that just wouldn't go away, I still went out to the gym every single day. Maybe not every day, but 4 days a week. And like, and that's that why. That's that thing pulling me along. There's reason and meaning and purpose behind it that is more than the outcome. And I think that's part of what can be daunting in that corporate setting, is that most of the time people are there for that outcome, the paycheck, the PR. If I don't get a raise, if I don't get more, I don't get more, I don't get more, I don't get more, it starts to suck the life out of you.
It does. It does. Ross, I was thinking about this, like this, not the corporate thing, but the point that the inevitability of, like, will this be the strongest I've ever got? And I also don't think I'm there yet, but I know that it's going to, if I stay here long enough, it's going to come. And then I'm thinking, maybe this is this biggest squat I'm ever going to squat. But then why do we lift, right? Why do we still do it if this is it? And then I think, a lot of what drives us is hope that something can be better. For me, it's like, if we don't have hope for a better outcome, then it's a really sad place to be. But there's always, and I'm thinking, is hope about the numbers? No, it's hope about quality of life. It's about, maybe I can, live longer, be stronger, be a better teacher, be a better coach. There's so much that lifting can give you. It's not just about the number, like the actual number on the bar is irrelevant. At some point, 100 kilos is going to be RP10, maybe when I'm 90. Who knows? Maybe when I'm younger, and having been quite sick at the end of last year, and having, like, it's the first time in my life where I had zero interest in lifting. I was like, I just didn't want to do it. And then coming back from tick bite fever and going, oh, it just feels so good to have a body weight squat again. That's so cool. But then getting greedy and going, okay, well, now I'm pissed because now my squat isn't what it was like in October. And that whole, like, that was a bit of a reckoning, but also, like, that also teaches you it's not about the number. Sometimes this really just feels nice just to squat and be strong and do stuff, But there's always, I think hope is a big driver, however that plays out for you. Hope that you can be stronger, more muscular, more agile, live better quality of life. And it starts to become really real as now I'm nearing 50. And, my contemporaries are talking about osteopenia, osteoporosis, and their doctors are saying, go to gym. And I'm like, go fucking deadlift. Why are you telling them to just like go to gym and do some like bands and stuff, or go to the, I'm like, why are the doctors not telling women to deadlift? Because that's a whole other podcast anyway. But yeah,
Right.
it's just, there's a lot of things that lifting gives me that are not at all related to my total.
We can just that up to another reason why just because you have a degree doesn't mean that everything that comes out of your mouth is intelligent.
Yes. I get so mad. Like go in a drip, and I'm like, yeah, do. That's not going to, but you should also deadlift.
Yes. Everybody
You don't
should
have to deadlift heavy, but it's really nice to deadlift heavy. But you don't have to, I don't know what it is that people are scared of weights. I don't know.
Well, I do think that there's been a lot of shifts and changes with that. And I think that was one of the most beautiful things about CrossFit. I never personally got much into CrossFit itself, but it was pretty obvious that, and I don't necessarily know why or what it was, but CrossFit really opened the door to put a lot of barbells in the hands of females and demonstrate that, women can 100% lift weights and do well at it and become strong, and it be something that's incredibly positive for them physically, mentally, spiritually, and really open the door. Because as CrossFit got more popular, you watch the sport of powerlifting and the demographic of the content of the people in powerlifting shifted as well because of CrossFit.
Yeah.
And
love it or hate
really
it, right?
Neat right. I thought it was really neat in 2010, 2012. It was really interesting to me starting to see some of those transitions happen. And when people from CrossFit gyms would show up at powerlifting competitions, not quite knowing about powerlifting yet, and they're warming up in the back and they're doing 10 RMs and 5 RMs, and they're fucking getting a warm up wad in, slow down there.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to still see it a little bit. It's sweet to watch, but it's just, I think CrossFit has a big role to play in terms of bringing strength to a lot more people. I thought we need more. We need more people. We need more women. I mean, we need more people in general, but we specifically need more women in their 40s, 50s, 60s doing strength training.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I think more for, I'm thinking about what you're talking about with your boss stuck away in the corner of his office and all pale and can't lift his 5-year-old. Regardless of what the societal shift is, it's not even about powerlifting at that point. It's about having a more inspired population to give a shit about their health and well-being.
Yeah.
And when you talk about that in a lot of different places, you're shaming people, and it's no, I actually care about them. I care that they lead a healthier, more abundant life. And those things that they're doing, if they're locked inside all day, eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew, that doesn't contribute to their health at all. And mind you, I was one of those. When I was a kid, man, same. I would eat a whole bag of Doritos and drink a 12-pack of Mountain Dew and play video games all day long.
It's living your best life.
So, I've been there. I get it. And I can reflect back and understand why I did it. And it was it was what I did to numb out the bullshit in my head. So, coping.
What was that?
Coping. Like you said, all behaviors are coping.
Coping. Yeah. Yeah. You're making me think of inadvertently the organization that I work for. Actually, this is so profound. They sent us on a leadership development course, and it's really good. Like all these business people, and we had a lecturer in leadership. His topic was leadership, and I couldn't actually believe that he was on. The bank was paying him, but on the first day in the room, you know how everybody walks into a room and then they're on their phone and the lecturer's there, and chit-chatting. And so he just sat there, and he just sat there, and he just sat there. And now the time ran on, and he just sat and watched. And eventually the room was like, what is going on? We're supposed to start at 9. It's like 10 o'clock. This guy's just sitting there. And like, so he got our attention. And then he said, okay, well, can everybody take their phones, turn them off, and put them in a box outside the room? And we were like, what? But we got, like, you got to stay and work. And anyway, so what he said is like, if you don't put boundaries in place, the organization will take everything you have to give and more. And you will die. And best case scenario, they will send flowers to your mother or your partner, and they will replace you and forget you ever existed.
Yeah.
So you need to put boundaries in place for yourself. Otherwise, they will never exist there. And and I actually was still in touch with him. And I thought, that's profound. And his point was, you need to be strong, healthy, and able to perform well at work. You need to have a solid family life to perform well at work. You need to perform well at work to enable your family life. And if you don't have boundaries in any of these things, you will perform well nowhere and be semi-present, and that serves no one. And I was like, this is one of the most profound things anyone has ever said to me, is when you leave this room, forget about work and go be where your feet are. Go be with your family. Don't be watching your kids' game, half on your phone, half doing an email, because you're serving no one.
Gosh, that's beautiful.
Isn't it? I have actually got goosebumps thinking about him. And I was like, how is this guy telling us not to work? But he's right. And I carry that into my lifting as well. It's like, I need to be present in my session. I need to not look at my email, not look at my phone, not answer text. I need to execute as best as I can and do the session justice. And then I need to get to the work that I need to do, or I need to do it before. Because if you're answering emails when you're trying to, dude, your emails are shit, and you also probably also shit on your RPE, or you misload bars. Like, I notice when I misload, I've been on my phone.
Yeah.
So,
yep. I absolutely, I love that, because for just a ton of reasons, but I think the most relatable one for me and the biggest one was when I first read the book Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. It was the first time in my life that I heard and learned about boundaries in that sense. And while there was places that I had boundaries, there was a lot of places that I didn't have boundaries. And there is such a just massive, profound realization that every moment of suffering in my life was my own lack of boundary. It was me giving myself away in a space that I did not want to give myself away. It was saying yes when I wanted to say no. It was doing something with an unspoken expectation, with not having any clear communication. So therefore, there could be no boundaries from the other party in return. So like, it all hinges on boundaries. And that was so huge for me in so many different ways. And like, I really believe that's one of the reasons why I love coaching so much, because I'm really good at that boundary. Like, I'm not, here's when I work, here's where I work, here's how I work. I'm not available during these other times. Unless I need to shift my schedule around, this is your schedule for me. And it's one of those things, like, at least in this world, like I see it with some coworkers, because we really fucking care about what we're doing, it can be really easy to let that boundary go and work a little bit harder and work a little bit more and do this and do that, because we really care and we're really excited about what we do. And that boundary for yourself is to ensure that that excitement remains and you don't throw water on the flame.
Yeah.
We can't do that to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, just to add to that, you can't serve your people if you burn out either.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Yeah.
When I was still doing, I believe it. When I was still doing Project Unchained before switching to the Intentional Athlete, there was a lady that I interviewed whose son was suffering with substance abuse and suicide ideations and active suicide attempts and all kinds of critical hardships. And she was really fighting for him to get therapy, and sometimes he'd go, sometimes he wouldn't. But she was also getting therapy. And one of the things that she talked about in her interview that is along these lines that was really important was her therapist advocated for her to prioritize her therapy over him and over his therapy, and that she wasn't allowed to cancel her sessions to go save him from something, because the way her therapist said it is like, this is how you get you right so that you can show up for as the best version. But if you go to save him and he's in a state of distress while you're in a state of distress, you're just putting more distress in the situation. And this becomes your space to ensure that you can go to that distressful situation with a grounded, centered, calm nature. So you can't ever deprioritize yourself for the sake of other people, right? In order to be your best self for that person, you can't be so self-sacrificing. In other words,
you can't martyr yourself for your lifting, for your children,
100%.
because you serve no one that way, And it's a safety net as well, because then maybe if you keep putting somebody else first, then you don't have to recognize and address the patterns. You don't have to do the hard things. You don't have to see where your growth is. It's a distraction, really.
That, or you end up resenting that person because you gave up all this stuff for them, or did you give it up because you were afraid to fail?
Exactly. Yeah. And that theme is coming up a lot.
Yep.
The fear of failure.
Absolutely. 100%. And it's hard for people to see, but and it's taken me a long time to see it too. And it still comes up to this day. It's still something that I'm kind of playing around with and looking at and trying to be more aware of it. But just the idea of those little moments, and they don't always have to be big and grand, but they can be those little moments of self-sabotage, and is the attempt to control the outcome. It's the reach for certainty. And when we reach for certainty, all we do is block our ability to contribute creatively. Jeez, tripping on my C words there.
Yeah. It's rude. It's rude when you actually realize that you're the master of your own destiny. But
yep,
it's also cool.
Yeah. And it's a level of responsibility that I just think a lot of people aren't prepared to handle. And I talk about it a lot. I read about it a lot. I try and cultivate it more in my life. And I'm not perfect at it by any means, but it's getting better. And I think that's another place where lifting can be beneficial, when we learn to do that from a place of intentionality and we see how we're creating and contributing. It can bring more awareness to that creating and contributing level of responsibility, and that's empowering. It's scary. I get it. It's scary to think that what you're doing is the creation of your life, but
it is. But I mean, I always say to people, you are everything you do. Like, I am who I am because of all the things I told you at the beginning of this episode, and I wouldn't necessarily, I didn't like all the previous versions of me. I kind of like me now. I don't like everything, but the thing is, I am a product of everything I've done, good or bad. It shaped me, and I think also knowing that you can shape your reality. That if you make choices on a daily basis, you will be a product of those choices. Like, a very simple way of illustrating it is, if you eat rubbish every day, in a year's time, your body will reflect that, no matter how hard you train. If you are a little bit more mindful and you eat 70% of your food being wholesome and 30% being food you enjoy that may not be classified as healthy, and do that every day, you will be in a much better place. So like, you are literally what you eat. And for me, that's just the most basic illustration of that concept. It's what we consume mentally, what we watch, who we talk to, who I spend my time with. And you're choosing me, I'm choosing you, and I'm grateful. But this is intentional. I'm with Ross and not some other random person, because you are in alignment with who I want to be. And I would say vice versa. And that is so flippin' cool that you get to choose these kind of things. And I think if you flip it into, like, I get to choose these cool things for myself instead of, I fucked up, then it becomes like kind of fun, right? And a journey of like, how cool, how good can I make myself? How evolved, how much better can I be? Can I be, you've shown me things, and just in a few words, like, really changed my whole thought trajectory. That's so powerful. it's so cool. You know, it's not always nice at the time, but looking back, it's like, we have so much power. Like if you go to bed half an hour earlier, what does that do to you?
Yeah.
You have so much power. You don't even have to go to sleep. Just go to bed. Put your phone on the other side of the room.
What would you say for those listeners out there that, because I mean, they're maybe they're not listening here, but there are people out there. What when a person's like, "Oh no, that's not true. I don't agree with that." How do you get them to see that or understand that it is the sum of their choices and they do get a say? So I think a lot of people like to blame the external world and current events, who the president is, what war is being fought, like what country hates this country, and really start to like point a lot of fingers to all kinds of other things that are far outside their control.
Some people just will never want to see it, you know. But yeah, you know, I'll say to someone, well, let's bring it a bit closer to home. Like people will say, oh, yeah, coaching is a good example. My coaching. Oh, I just don't have the money for that right now. I'm like, okay. And and you go to a gym and you're training and you're traveling to competitions and you've just been on vacation in Puerto Rico. So I'll be blunt with them and say, maybe it's just not a priority for you. And maybe you just need to make peace with your priorities, and being in control of your own destiny isn't a priority for you. And that is what it is, right? Maybe being happy isn't a priority. It's much easier to be a victim. And and I'll say to them, so can you do anything about the president in this moment? No? Okay. Can you influence what's happening in the world at this moment? How much? No, nothing. Okay. So what can you do? What can you do in this moment other than make choices in your own life to nourish your body and be strong and healthy and manage your stress and build resilience? Those are the only thing that exists is what you can do and the actions that you can control. And if you don't want to do that, it just means you have a priority problem. Yeah. And you just need to own that.
Yeah, that's huge.
Brutal.
Gay Hendricks talks about stuff like that when he talks about the concept of time. And that was huge for me because I'm definitely, I get very rude and I don't have enough time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. And what I realized that can do for me is I then get really stressed out because I feel like I don't have enough time to get all these things done. And with there's no shortage of grand ideas in my life with the work at RTS, with the work at the Intentional Athlete, the stuff Vanessa and I are working on. Like we have a lot of really cool shit going on. It's amazing. And as a result, there's a lot of moments where I'm like, oh man, I don't have enough time to work on all this stuff. I don't have enough time to create all this stuff. And he talks about like your language creating that stress response and that hurry. And so I've been doing a lot of effort lately into removing I don't have time from my language choice. And just like, I will get done what I can get done. I'm going to work on what I can work on. But I'm really trying to stay dedicated to this. I'm not going to respond with, oh, I don't have enough time. Vanessa asked me, oh, can we do this weekend? I'm not going to be, no, we don't have enough time. I'm going to just think about what are the priorities and what is the order of priority.
That's it.
And try and find a way to organize that. And I shit you not, Pia, the day that I made that like shift and change in that kind of like promise to myself to work on that shift and change, there's been several areas in my life that have required way less of my effort. And I was like, whoa,
I believe it.
Whoa, look at this shift. And then all of a sudden, everything just got easier because I'm not stressing myself out by my own choice of my own language to myself. So I think somebody that doesn't quite believe what we're talking about here in terms of like the choice, I think one of the key things to think about is just give yourself the opportunity to experiment with it and think about it in terms of you're making these choices and how these choices contribute to the sum total of the experience, and start small and explore, and you'll start to see how those things play out for you. And you'll start to go, oh, I do have a choice. Now, sure, you don't have a choice in the president. You don't have a choice in some of these geopolitical things that are going on that nobody likes. Nobody wants any of this shit that's going on in the world. But you can't do anything about those. You can do something about what you're doing right now and how you're showing up and participating right now.
Exactly. And just a little side question. Check your screen time and then tell me you don't have time. I guarantee you'll have an hour to 2 hours back in your day.
Not just your phone, but also that Netflix and chill time. All of it.
All of it. All of it.
Yeah. And look, that doesn't mean you can't do those things. It just means priorities.
It's coming to your podcast. It's intentional. It's like if you mind, you will never, we're never going to have enough time. We are always going to be stressed. Meet prep never goes according to a plan. Never. I coach many people. I've done many meets. It's never, maybe once, your first meet, because you don't know any better. There's always something. So your choice is always, what can I do right now? And you can always do something right now. And it might not be the perfect version of a thing, but done is better than none, right? And I think it's very easy to leak your energy mindlessly. My business coach made me do this. I hated this. I hated it. I recommend this for everyone. She made me do a time audit where I had to, every 30 minutes for a week, write down what I was doing. I hated it. Why? Because it exposed, well, it was onerous, and it exposed so much. Oh, you think you're training hard? No, you're spending an hour talking to your friends at the gym. You just don't have discipline or boundaries.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on me. So I can't say I'm too busy, And also, you also have to accept maybe I can't do everything right now. But maybe if I do the two most important things that I need to do every day, I'm going to get a lot further in those things than trying to do everything all at once. Because again, my business coach called me out on this. She's like, you're sabotaging yourself, Pia. You're just so busy all the time that you never make time to plan, to put systems in place. And I'm like, fuck you, you're right. I don't like that. But it's true. So yeah, 100%. That's definitely resonating with me.
Oh yeah. I totally agree. And that's like the priorities and the choices and the time leeches. It's just a reminder, like I look at that as self-sabotage, like taking us out of our presence and choosing something that's a distraction rather than being focused is a form of self-sabotage of like, definitely. What would happen if you were fully present? How awesome would this creation be? But instead we're choosing to be partially present because that will ensure that it's not as great as it could be.
And you're always going to feel splintered and tired and shattered and chaotic as long as something is stealing it. And if it's not, like you said, the phone's not bad. It should be intentional.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. It's a great tool. It's a great modern device that also has a lot of downside to it.
Yeah. This new world that we navigate.
It sure is. Well, Pia, I want to be mindful of your time here, and we've been chatting for quite a while, and I feel like we could keep going. Let's wrap things up and put a little bow on it. What would be your closing advice to anybody listening? I can be open-ended about anything that we talked about today.
Don't settle. I settled for a long time, but then if you feel restless, lean into that. It's telling you something.
Anxiety is such a gift that so many people just want to get away from and not listen to. But man, I will spare the rabbit hole, but some of the most important shifts of my life have been at the point of the highest anxiety because it finally woke me the fuck up.
That's the point. It's like, well, I'm going to use the word unhappy. Like if we're always happy, we never change.
Yeah.
Right. And the biggest shifts in my life have come because I haven't been or happy or angry. Like the status quo wasn't good, and it shouldn't be. Like life, I used to think, oh, you have to be happy the whole time. Actually, no. I mean, you don't have to be a miserable person to be around, but you can be very unhappy with the status quo. That's what drives change. And we're scared of feeling those feelings. And the other thing is we get stuck in feeling those feelings. We need to act on them. But like if you're like feeling that restlessness in you, it's a gift. Yep. You got to lean into it. It's scary.
Sit with it, lean into it, whatever you want to call it, but it's there for a reason. Yeah. It's there for a purpose. So I love it. That's beautiful advice. How can people find you if they are looking to connect with you?
They can get me on Instagram at Pia_Marangoni or on the business Instagram, which is Fiercely Fueled.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pia. I appreciate you joining me today.
Gosh, you're the best. It's always a good time.
I appreciate you.
Thank you.